Hello and welcome to this episode of our program Windows. I'm Mona Muselhi, sitting here on behalf of my colleague Dina Hussein, and today we'll be speaking about the stock markets. Prime Minister Ibrahim Mahlab discussed the stocks declines that have been witnessed through the previous or some of the recent weeks, and of course he held a meeting with the head of the stock market. He held a meeting with Minister of Investment, with a number of investors, a number of officials and high-ranking stock officials. We will be discussing the meeting that occurred, what are the means to boost the stock market as part of investments that is located for or how to increase investments in this sector, particularly that it is part of the Egyptian revenues even on the long term. We will be also discussing investments in Egypt's incentives given to investors. What are the challenges facing investors at large and how to boost investments? Let me first, before starting with our discussion, let me first welcome our guests here, Dr. Ahmed Gad, economic expert. Thank you very much for being with us. And Mr. Nader Khidr, expert in the stock markets. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
We start from the meeting of Prime Minister Mahlab, where he discussed with Minister or Investment Minister Ashraf Salman and the head of the Egyptian stock market, Dr. Mohammed Omran, as well as a number of high-ranking officials in the Bourse and a number of investors, the problems facing the stock markets. From your point of view, Dr. Gad, what are the problems facing the stock markets?
I think the government is really facing a difficulty in terms of managing the economy of the country, encouraging a lot of investors, whether they are international or locals, to always dispute any new strategies that are proposed by the government. We've seen disputes against the tax rates, disputes against the rules of the stock market, disputes against the economic policies. And I think we need to look at why investors come here in the first place. Investors come because of the size of the market. They come because of the cost of production is a lot lower than a lot of countries, except China, of course. But in the end, they are benefiting as much as Egypt benefits, and we need to enforce certain policies in the years to really regulate or come back to the full control of the economy. I think the weakness of the government is encouraging people to always dispute. In terms of the stock market, I think we are facing a number of issues in terms of focusing on a small business that basically amounts for 99% of the all private sector companies in Egypt. We need to focus more on that in terms of how companies can contribute and focus on the contributors to the economy and enforce these policies, because they already have been discussed, they already been studies, and I see the rules that are enforced here, or the plan of the government, is definitely for the benefit of the country, and we need to insist on it.
Right. Mr. Nader, your vision towards the reason behind the decline of the stocks in those previous times, the reason behind Prime Minister Mahlab meeting with the stock market officials?
Before we continue talking about the problems and the disputes and the struggle that's going on between the participants of the secondary market, which is considered in the economic theory as an exit tool for the investment climate of a country, we have to know some basic points and agree on them. First of all, we are an emerging economy or a developing economy. We have been suffering for more than 5 years, and we have suffered 3 years before that due to the financial crisis, and after that the upheavalment that happened in 2011, the unclarity and the clouded vision that was in 2013 by the people who were leading the country at the time,
Yes.
the disputes that happened about the leadership, the arguments, the new constitution. We are a country having its own
Uncertainties.
problems.
Uncertainties.
Okay, political uncertainty, social uncertainty, security instability. There was a huge security instability during the past 4 years before the police forces regain or recollect or recap its force again and stands on and face what we are seeing now. All this gives us one result. We are a country with priorities. Our priority is to encourage investments in the real economy, not in the virtual economy. Stock market is just a mirror. And Dr. Ahmed could support me or...
definitely.
Yes, but
it's just a mirror.
Yes.
Come on. We cannot deal with problems
we
happening
did not
in the mirror and
sir,
neglect
we did
the
not
economy.
you did not even mention the reason behind the decline.
That's what I'm going to. I'm going to say.
With discussing
okay. I'm going to say why is the reason. During the past 4 years, there was steps taken regarding the roadmap, the elections, the new constitutions, the referendum. All this were positive signs. If you looked at the index in 2012, June 2012, you would find it at 5,700. Today, we are talking about crashing or getting down or being slumped from 9,700. Okay?
And
there
even
are
10,000 points.
10,000 points. Even we reached 10,000, but we didn't close on it. Accordingly, we are talking about 100% gains in more than 3 years. Average of 30% per year. So we are making a hustlement or making all this noise about just 8% in 2 months? Come on, guys. Who said you are traders in the stock market if you are making all this hustlement?
People do not understand what you're speaking about.
I'm saying what happened since February.
What is the 10% you're speaking about?
I'm taking the 10% is the difference between the most high, the highest point in the index, which was recorded in Feb 2015, and today's recorded index, which is 8,700 points. Okay, we are talking about 8% decline in the total value. Okay, I know the index is not a clear reflector for the market performance. However, the market is an exit tool, not a main primary tool in collaborating investments in the real economy. It helps in collecting investments in the capital increases of companies already established in their expansions. But what about new companies we are seeking? What about new investments we are seeking to grab them and make them interested in our economy and in our country? We are a mega market, over than 88 million person consuming everything every day. Electricity, clothes, food, water,
yes,
etc.
but you're speaking about right now the
our
overall
country's priority now is 3 points, according to official statements, international reports, and the statements of President Sisi. First is to minimize our budget deficit as much as it could be without hurting the lower income people, which means we have to revisit and reschedule and restructure our subsidy system, social insurance system, healthcare system, and other things, which means we need funds for this. We are having a huge gap.
Hence, sir, we want to
we are
return to our
we
main
are
topic,
imposing taxes.
which is the stock market,
The
and
stock
this is why
market-
we are discussing
The
here.
stock market will rally automatically
So let's
if the
return
investments,
back to
if the investments found their interest in the country.
We'll get to the
accordingly.
overall scene. Trust me, we'll get to the overall scene. We'll first discuss step by step.
The stock
particularly
market
because
has
this is-
declined as profit-taking during the past few days, or the past few weeks, because we have rose during the past 2 years over 100%. There are countries have reached double their value, their market value since 2012, and there are companies and stocks didn't move. Let's take, for example, a bank stock, whatever the name, I will not mention, but everyone knows it. It has rose from 33 pounds per stock to 63 pounds per stock before it gives its dividends during the past 2 years. Today it's trading at 53 pounds. Accordingly, if I'm an investor and seeing the multiple, which is a reflector for the investment return in such bank, hiking the roof, won't I sell it? Won't I short it, to be more specific, in the GDR, which means international markets? Of course I would, because I'm seeing this company is overvalued. This bank is overvalued. This country is overvalued in its index. There has to be some profit taking, so the market rectifies itself. But
So
what's happening now is some small group of people who has interest in having many trades every day, making speculation, making trades, making whatever they want, making activity, overwhelming the trading value with non-real trades to score benefits.
Right.
So accordingly, they are imposing and opposing this tax because this will hurt them.
We did not even mention the tax in the first place. We did not reach even
All
that
the
point.
harassment is about this.
Dr. Ahmed Ged, as Dr. Here Nader Khidr spoke and he raised the aspect, even
Yep.
if we did not bring it up yet, but yes, a part of the issue was the taxation system, and part of what the investors spoke about, or the participants of, as Mr. Khidr here insisted that they are, they spoke about the capital gains, and they said that those capital gains are new in Egypt, and they do not create a kind of conducive atmosphere for investments in this sector. So, your comment to that?
Let me first agree with Mr. Nader that the progressive increase in profits and dividends in the past 2 years is basically huge. So 8% the drop is nothing, so it's still high. That's what he's trying to say.
Exactly.
Number two, the stock market is not a reflection of market performance,
Definitely.
and therefore
But
it's just a mirror.
escape.
That's right. What he's trying to say, it's not a crisis. You know, it's a up and down, but it's not a crisis. With regard to the taxation, let's first say that taxation is more than 12% in most developed countries on a stock or the dividends. I think Egypt being new in the market of imposing taxes on investment, a lot of people are trying to doubt the ability of the government and the leadership, the political leadership in managing the country, and trying to basically dispute whatever the government is trying to do. However, there is definitely a need for taxes because we need money, as Mr. Khidr said. We need money. The investors will have to pay. And let me go back to the first point I said, that investors come here whether they are local or international. They come because we are a large market. We very highly consuming market. The stock market is basically, not the stock market, the exchange market is stabilizing. We've got a large market that basically encourages the consumption and profit. And on top of that, Egypt is in the middle of the world. So if they are manufacturing in Egypt, investing in Egypt, they can easily distribute their products to Asia, Africa, and Europe at 10% of the price if they are producing in China. So let's say that investors come to Egypt because they are winning, not because it's a gift to Egypt. And we have to realize that. We have to trust ourselves that we've got a potential, we've got a market, we've got resources, we've got 22 mega projects. When they are actually fully finished, we're going to be the leaders of the world in trade and economics. And it's not a basically exaggeration, it's a fact.
Yes,
so
definitely.
we need to basically trust in ourselves, trust in our decision. So going back to the taxation, now it's not new. All countries around the world basically impose
But
taxation.
Sir, just quoting some of the investors, because we've been speaking about that before in other episodes, and they said that the capital gains, for instance, do not exist in the Gulf area, in the stocks of the Gulf area at large.
The Gulf area has a different taxation system. They don't even have tariffs. So I can't really compare. But the fact here is there is certain rules and regulations that are imposed by governments depending on the need of the government. So in the Gulf area, because they don't manufacture, so basically they don't need taxation, they don't need tariffs. Tariffs basically is one of the 7 mechanisms that I use to regulate the international trade. So for example, I'm getting cotton from outside for 800 pounds. My cotton is 2,000. So I put the tariff on the foreign one, like the Greek one, and then basically to try to stabilize the price of the cotton. But the Gulf doesn't manufacture anything. They're not manufacturing country. Basically, they're buyers, and they're going to pay for that very soon. So they basically buying products ready-made, and therefore they don't need tariffs because they're going to increase the price of the products onto their citizens. So in terms of the taxation again, it is the need of the Egyptian government and the need of the Egyptian population to impose taxes. I think the 10% is very moderate compared to what is charged in other countries in the world. It's not new. The entire world knows that. And the last thing, I think it's the weakness of our government to be able to respond accurately to the statements of investors that if Egypt is not a profitable country for you or a profitable market for you, you wouldn't come here. So the fact here is it's not going to reduce. And this is a statement and I'm making, and I'm sure of it, that the imposing 10% taxes is not going to reduce the amount of investors coming to Egypt, or amount of investment coming to Egypt, simply because it's less than Europe. The cost of production here is a lot cheaper. The
No, I'm not
location,
speaking, we're not
I'm giving you a comprehensive picture that basically...
We are not speaking about a comprehensive picture to the whole investment scene, because yes, definitely Egypt has lots of potentials. I'm speaking in the area, and this is why
Well, if you let me finish it, Ms. Mona, you will realize. I understand what you're trying to say. Now I'm making £100 profit, paying 10% to the stock, right? That's 10%.
Yes.
Now that £10, I need to get it somewhere else. I get it from the cost of production. That's what I'm saying. It's the comprehensive picture will compensate his loss. If we consider the tax amount to the stock market is actually a loss to him, I'm going to gain it somewhere else because the cost of labor is cheaper. The cost of production is cheaper. I've got the material. Transportation is cheaper. Therefore, the 10% is not going to cause a loss to investors. That's why it's not going to be something negative to them that will take them out of the country.
What about small shareholders? I mean here small investors who do not have other areas of investments except for their participation in the stock market.
Let's have a numerical example. Let's have a numerical. I'm a small investor having £100,000, investing them and living off the return. Okay, I'm doing 1,000 per month return on the 100,000. Accordingly, that means I'm doing 12% return per year. How much will I pay for the 12% per year from this tax? 1.2%. 10% of the 12%. Accordingly, I will be paying 1,200 per year, which means what I'll be paying per month, 100 pounds, which means what I'll be paying per day, 3 pounds. 3 pounds as taxation upon my portfolio, which gives me 1,000 pounds to live with per month. Is this number?
But let's also say that there is a cost. There is also a cost of investments. What are the investors expecting to have a full investment profile with a lot of resources and labor for free?
No, we are not talking about investors here. We are talking about the traders.
The traders, yes.
The traders.
Honestly,
we are taking
and sincerely, we are getting to this point. We are going to get.
I'm talking about the traders.
At
I'm
large.
talking about a trader who lives off his returns from the trading portfolio he's putting in the stock market. Okay? I'm forgetting here that the stock market is just an exit tool, it's just a mirror, it's just a secondary tool in the economy. I'm forgetting all that. I'm saying it's an essential for me to live with. Okay? It's a primary for me. It gives me 1,000 pounds to live with each month. I'll be paying out of this 1,000 pounds, 100 pounds. Okay? This 100 pounds will be divided upon each day of the month, which means 3 pounds per day. Come on. The ticket in any bus is more than 3 pounds going and coming back in one trip. If I'm going to make something downtown and come back, I'll be paying more than 3 pounds.
Yes.
If I took the bus. So it's nothing. It's nothing. The hasslement is being made by people who wants to benefit from virtual economy. This is the whole point. However, I'm not with the taxation upon the capital market.
I don't have anybody in their side, so they can answer back. So I just have to report what they are saying.
I will be on their side now and will tell you what happened during the past 7 years. Dr. Gad was just saying this issue is not new for the world. And this issue is not new, I'm adding on him, this issue is not new for us here in Egypt. It has been talked over in 2008, 2010, 2012, in 2013, and has been converted into the tariffs they are talking about today, and they were opposing it during the days it was imposed. Okay? And it was talked over again in 2014. Maybe the timing wasn't very aligned with Minister of Finance in imposing it.
At these particular times.
Okay?
Yes.
But whatever, it has been imposed. It's a sovereignty of a country. Come on, guys. Would you diminish the sovereignty of a country and newly imposed management in the country and newly imposed cabinet for some tradable gains?
Right. We'll be continuing our discussion, and the Egypt economic policy started to pay off according to the International Monetary Fund. We'll be continuing on with our discussion on the Egyptian economy and more right after this very short break.
إن شاء الله زي دلوقتي لو كان لي عمر أنا، وإن شاء الله نصير لهم العمر، نيجي ونفتتح المرحلة ديت ونعبر في القناة الجديدة 35 كيلو.
كمل مشوارك في السكة لسه في أول.
إحنا بنسابق الزمن.
بس يا رب وربنا على خير هيكملها. لو شلت أمانة عارفك قدها وحدودها تشيلها. ما أنت من البلد اللي تملي بتجيب رجالة. كمل مشوارك في السكة لسه في أولها.
Right, welcome back and to our program Windows and Egypt's economy at large. This time Egypt's economy at large, and as I said before the break, Egypt's economic policy is starting to pay off according to the IMF chief. And back to you, Dr. Gad, and yes, stock market is part of the Egyptian economy, even if it's not the first sector that we really depend on, but it seems, according to the IMF, according to Fitch, according to other notes, that we are getting along.
Yep.
So your comments, sir.
Definitely, I think Egypt has undergone the major economic reform in the past few months, and the great economic forum that was in Sharm el-Sheikh a few weeks back, I think a reflection of the ability of Egypt to start a new era of a strong economy with awareness of the Egyptians basically on the consumption patterns, the ability of the country to host a lot of different investment portfolios. As the President said in his speech during the forum, and Mr. Nader also confirmed that the government focuses, number one, on maintaining the status quo, basically, and trying to close part of the deficit. Number two is looking at the mega projects, which started with the Suez Canal corridor, increasing the investment opportunities, and more than that, looking at reforming the economy in different areas. And we've seen also the issuance of the investment law, the unified investment law. So I think Egypt is really opened the door and treated all the negative aspects of the investment or the economic environment in terms of regulations. We've got now the regulation corrections in terms of issuing new laws that basically protects investment, ensures equality, and so on. We're looking recently at the reform of the administrative system, because there's a lot of corruption and it affects also the performance of the economy. We're looking also, according to the report of the International Bank, when it comes to labor, the Egyptian labor basically force is skilled, but not as it's required on the international
and this
standards.
is why they've been speaking about vocational training.
Absolutely. So if we're looking at the three factors that Egypt needs, or any country for that matter needs to have a strong economy, number one, land, labor, and capital. And in terms of land, I think now with the redrawing of the provinces side and targeting new areas to start utilizing the natural resources, I think we're getting out of the narrow corridor of the valley to utilize all resources to maximize the benefit, the economic benefits. On the second part, we've got we're targeting now the labor force. We've got about 29 million Egyptians, looking at pushing them to acquire all international skills required. And lastly, we need the capital, which is the third factor. And the capital here comes through international investment and local investment. We've talked about the international investments, and now through the forum, I think we're hoping to have a large foreign investment portfolio in the next few months. But what I'm concerned about here is the local economy and the local investors. At the moment, if we look at the two sides of the economy, the formal economy and the informal economy. The informal economy now stands on 6 million Egyptians. This is very dangerous. The 6 million Egyptians, like the traders on the street, the people in the market.
We're speaking about grey market, right?
That's
Yes,
right.
exactly.
So the informal sector, basically here, there are 6 million people, but in many reports it amounts, the trade revenue, we're talking about more than £1 trillion per annum. So it's a large economy. So the government now is moving into formalizing the informal sector, getting it into the formal sector in terms of having that money into the banks to be invested. The clever idea of the investment certificates now to be issued to fund the development projects, I think this is the move now. So what we are seeing at the moment is just the movements to correct the situation in Egypt on all fronts, whether they are social, economic, or political. But in the next few months, we'll see major changes in Egypt with the involvement of the informal sector into the formal economy. We'll see a lot of rise in the stock market. We'll see a lot of investments. We'll see a lot of mega projects completed.
Definitely, that would be very much interesting. Speaking about, if we here spoke about the mega projects, and we spoke about the informal, getting them into the formal economic scene, but we also want to speak about the small, medium, and macro enterprises or investments. And the country has been very much encouraging those sectors, particularly with incentives, with loans, and we want to know how far can these part of economy be a resource for revenue.
Okay. Talking about investing in the SMEs or the small medium
Yes.
enterprise especially makes us talk about the local capital, which was the main concept that was discussed in one of the World Economic Forum articles during the past 2 weeks, talking about that emerging markets, especially depending or hoping to depend upon its small medium enterprises, is the local capital. This is enlighten us about where did the governor of the central bank get the idea of the investment certificate. As Dr. Ahmed mentioned, it was a very clever idea in grasping the concept of local capital, enhancing people and encouraging them to get their savings and shift it into investment. This was the main concept that the NILEX was established for, which is the Egyptian Stock Exchange for Small and Medium Enterprise. However, due to the unprofessionality of research houses handling such part of the stock exchange, due to the defaults and the deficiencies in the in the stock market as a whole, this led to converting the NILEX into a speculating bet. Okay. Accordingly, the small and medium enterprise started to head to other resources, such as banks, such as, but let's be frank, I have worked in the consultancy sector regarding the SMEs and tried to get funds from banks to such enterprises. These enterprises, most of them, not all of them, till now are still working in the gray market, as you mentioned, and in the informal market, as Dr. Ahmed said. The country now is trying to move them gradually and start to modify its legislations to encounter them into the formal market. But to do so, we are talking about leaders of such projects that need development, labor force that needs to be informed about their rights and their duties and the legislations, coordinating the relation between them and the entrepreneur and the banks and the social insurance, all this. And this will not come a night and a morning. It's not a snapshot and it will be done. No, it will take years. They have to have mega projects to contribute to, which is already happening. New sales channel already having some of these entrepreneurs regarding the contracting, regarding the construction, regarding the delivery, regarding the transportation, regarding even the furbishing of the rests on the road. Some of these are included, of these SMEs are included, which will convene a new market for them and enhance them to create revenue and therefore to pay taxes, getting and generating money to close the gap in our deficit and making them a reliable part of our economy, not only being a part of the gray market. or a grey economy.
Very much indeed. Getting back to what the IMF was speaking about it, the IMF, a high ranking official at the IMF predicted that growth would be about 4% this year. And he even went to say that before, of course, Egypt was going after a loan by the IMF. Now the leadership or the government of President Sisi is not requesting an IMF loan and is not even after it. But he said that the fund stood ready to provide assistance if asked. So what is the message?
Well, the message here that the West is trying to always keep the nose in our policies and in our development. No, we don't need a loan. But the fact here, the loan is a reflection or a certificate of accreditation that the Egyptian economy is progressing and developing. I think Egypt really never really had the need for a loan. But the first application was actually made after the revolution, is to create that credibility that the Egyptian economy is trustworthy, and the IMF gives us a loan. That means it's a certificate of accreditation and endorsement that it is a good economy and you will get your money back as a foreign investor. And then we got the Muslim Brotherhood afterwards. Things were going very wrong. But at the moment, I think President Sisi, as Mr. Nada said, is trying to use the internal sources of fund. And just to add one part on the SMEs, the companies or the SMEs enterprises that employ less than 50 employees, they account for 99% of all private sector companies registered. On top of that, they account for 65% of labor force employment. Unfortunately, and this is really the weak part, that you contribute only 4% of the total economy in terms of contribution. If we look at China, they are 60% of the companies is SMEs, but they contribute about 65%.
So is it that the concept itself of SMEs is not very much understandable?
It is.
Or the policies concerning
it never
regulations.
had to, exactly. It was a policy issue. We really, if we look at the history of SME support in Egypt, I think the first serious legislation that was issued to support the SMEs was in 2005. But the former President Mubarak issued the legislation to support SMEs, and then he made it kind of a department or attached to the Social Solidarity Ministry. At the moment, we've got a chaos in that particular area, because if you look at Labor Department, you will find, or Labor Ministry, you will find SME. The Trade and Industry, there is SME. The Social Solidarity is SME. And it's part of an administrative chaos of more than 3,000 associations that actually govern, and a lot of them are contradicting. So if you actually look at economic performance, sometimes planning talks about, and sometimes trade and industry talks about, and you don't know really who's in charge. And here the problem is, when it comes to managing the different portfolios, we need to look at a specific organization with a studied and measured plan to manage that. And I think the administrative reform will help in that particular area. But in terms of the progress of the Egyptian economy, definitely we also expected here that it reached about 3.7% after the economic forum. So Egypt is definitely progressing. However, there is something that the citizen needs to understand, that when you start, let's say we've got a debt, even at home, the first thing you need to do once you get some profit is pay the debt first. So therefore, we need 2 to 3 years before the citizens start seeing a progress. Absolutely, because we've got a lot of holes that needs to be covered. The first one is the deficit. After that, we've got basically a mega project to support, and I think the next phase is we're going to see a different lifestyle to the Egyptians, inshallah, in the next 3 years.
I guess 2016 will witness
Definitely.
a lot of changes.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, our time is out, and I have to end
Thank
it
you very
here.
much.
Dr. Ahmed Gadi, economic expert, and Dr. Nader Khidr, expert in the stock markets and economic expert. Thank you very much, both the
Thank you
gentlemen, for
very
being
much.
with us.
Thank you.
Dear viewers, many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the top stories coming up with a